October 25, 1957, 9:15 a.m. Park Sheraton Hotel Barbershop. Albert Anastasia, the Lord High Executioner of Murder, Inc., sat in chair 4, his face wrapped in hot towels, completely vulnerable. Two men walked in wearing scarves over their faces. They raised their guns, 5 shots. Anastasia was dead before the towel hit the floor. But here's what nobody talks about. There was supposed to be a 6th man in that barbershop, a lookout. His name was Vincent "Vinny the Cough" Morrow, and he'd been paid $15,000 to make sure nobody interrupted the hit. Except Vinny wasn't there. He was 3 blocks away, sitting in a diner, eating eggs and reading the... And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. The racing form, and that decision, that one absence, would cost him everything. To understand what happened to Vinny Morrow, you need to understand who Albert Anastasia was in 1957. He wasn't just another mob boss. He was the man other mobsters feared. He'd built Murder, Inc. in the 1930s, turning contract killing into a business, organized, efficient, ruthless. By the 50s, he controlled the Brooklyn waterfront, ran the docks, and had his fingers in every racket from gambling to narcotics. But Anastasia had a problem. He was too violent, even for the mob. He killed on impulse. He killed for disrespect. He once ordered a hit on a man he saw on television, a random witness in a trial, just because he didn't like the guy's face. The commission, the ruling body of New York's 5 families, was getting nervous. Vito Genovese, in particular, saw an opportunity. Take out Anastasia, and Genovese could absorb his operations, his territories, his income streams. But a hit on someone like Anastasia required precision. You couldn't just walk up and shoot him. He had bodyguards, drivers, soldiers everywhere. You needed the perfect moment, the perfect location, and the perfect crew. Genovese reached out to Carlo Gambino, Anastasia's underboss, the man closest to him. The pitch was simple. Help us take out Anastasia and you become boss of his family. Gambino was a careful man, not prone to rash decisions, but he'd watched Anastasia's increasing paranoia, his violent outbursts, his dangerous unpredictability. Anastasia was becoming a liability. So Gambino said yes. They assembled a crew, 2 shooters, brothers named Larry and Joe Gallo from Brooklyn, a driver, Anthony "Tony Shots" Strollo, and a lookout, Vinny Morrow. Vinny was a small-time guy, a bookmaker who ran numbers in Red Hook. He wasn't a killer, wasn't a tough guy, but he was reliable. He showed up on time, kept his mouth shut, and never caused problems. That's why they picked him. They needed someone forgettable, someone who could... And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Stand outside that barbershop on a Friday morning and look like he belonged there. They met in a social club in Little Italy 3 days before the hit. Gambino laid out the plan. October 25th, Friday morning, 9 a.m. Anastasia gets his haircut every Friday, same time, same place. Park Sheraton Hotel Barbershop on 55th and 7th. He goes alone, no bodyguards inside. It's the only time he's vulnerable. Larry and Joe, you go in through the main entrance, scarves over your faces. Anastasia will be in chair 4, he always sits in chair 4. You walk in, you shoot, you walk out. Tony's got the car running on 55th Street. Gambino pointed at Vinny. You're outside on 7th Avenue. You watch the entrance. Anyone comes toward the barbershop that looks like trouble, you cough. That's the signal. 1 cough means hold. 2 coughs means abort. Vinny nodded. That's it? That's it. You stand there, you watch, you cough if there's a problem. Then you walk away. $15,000 for 10 minutes of work. They gave Vinny half the money up front, $7,500 in a paper bag. The other half would come after the job. Vinny took the bag home to his apartment on Mott Street. He counted the money 3 times, $7,500, more money than he'd made in the last 2 years combined. His wife, Rosa, had been sick with diabetes. The medical bills were crushing them. His daughter needed braces. His son wanted to go to college. This money could change everything. But Vinny had a problem, and the problem was fear. He wasn't a killer. He'd never been involved in anything like this. He ran numbers, took bets, paid out winners. He was a bookmaker, not a murderer. And this wasn't just any murder. This was Albert Anastasia, the most feared man in New York. What if something went wrong? What if the cops showed up? What if someone saw him? What if Anastasia's people figured out who was involved? These thoughts kept Vinny awake for 3 nights straight. By Thursday, October 24th, the night before the hit, Vinny had made a decision. He wasn't going to be there. Thursday night, October 24th, 1957, 11 p.m. Vinny Morrow sat in his kitchen on Mott Street smoking his 5th cigarette in an hour. Rosa was asleep. The kids were asleep. The apartment was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic on Canal Street. On the table in front of him sat the paper bag with $7,500. Next to it, a bottle of whiskey, half empty. Vinny had been going over it in his head for days, running every scenario, every possibility. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., he was supposed to stand outside a barbershop and watch while 2 men murdered Albert Anastasia. And if anything went wrong, if the cops came, if witnesses remembered his face, if Anastasia's people traced it back, Vinny Morrow would be a dead man. He'd seen what happened to guys who failed the mob. Bodies in car trunks, bodies in the river, bodies that were never found at all. Vinny poured another whiskey. Maybe, he thought, maybe they don't really need me. Maybe I'm just insurance. The shooters know what they're doing. They've done this before. What's a lookout going to do anyway? If cops show up, there's no time to warn anyone. If someone walks in, it's already too late. Maybe this whole lookout thing is just to make me complicit, to make sure I can't talk. Because if I'm there, if I'm part of it, I'm in it forever. He thought about Rosa, about the medical bills, about his kids' futures. $7,500 could help, but what good was money if he was dead? What good was it if he spent the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, waiting for the bullet with his name on it? By midnight, Vinny had decided. He wasn't going to the barbershop. He'd keep the $7,500. He'd tell them what? That he got sick? That something came up? That he got lost? It didn't matter. By the time they realized he wasn't there, Anastasia would be dead. The job would be done. They wouldn't come after him for a completed hit. They needed him before, but once it was over, once Anastasia was gone, Vinny was just another guy. Nobody important, nobody worth killing. That's what Vinny told himself as he finished the whiskey and went to bed. He almost believed it. Friday morning, October 25th, 8:45 a.m. Larry and Joe Gallo were in Tony Strallo's Buick, parked half a block from the park, Sheraton Hotel. They wore dark suits, fedoras, scarves folded in their jacket pockets. They looked like businessmen, unremarkable, forgettable. Tony Schott sat behind the wheel, engine running, watching the street. "Where's Vinny?" Joe asked, checking his watch. "Should be here by now." "Maybe he's at the other entrance," Larry said, though he didn't sound convinced. They waited. 8:50. 8:55. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Still no Vinny. "Fuck it," Larry said. "We don't need him. Anastasia's in there alone. Barber, maybe one other customer. We go in, we do it, we leave." "You sure?" Tony asked. "We're sure." At 9:12 a.m., Larry and Joe Gallo walked into the Park Sheraton Hotel barbershop. Albert Anastasia was in chair 4, his face covered with a hot towel. Arthur Grasso, the barber, was stropping a razor. One other customer was reading a newspaper in the waiting area. The Gallos pulled their scarves up, drew their guns, and opened fire. 5 shots. Anastasia tried to stand, tried to fight, even blinded by the towel. He lunged at the mirror, at the reflection of his killers, and died, grabbing at empty air. The Gallos walked out, calm and unhurried. Tony's Buick was waiting. They drove away at normal speed, turned onto 8th Avenue, and disappeared into morning traffic. The whole thing took 90 seconds. Meanwhile, 3 blocks south, Vinny Morrow was sitting in a diner on 52nd Street, eating scrambled eggs and rye toast, reading the Daily News racing section. He decided to establish an alibi, just in case. If anyone asked where he was, he could say he was at the diner, just a regular Friday morning. Ask the waitress, she'd remember. At 9:20, a man burst into the diner, shouting, "They shot Anastasia! Someone killed Anastasia at the barber shop!" Vinny's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. His stomach dropped. It was done. They'd done it without him. For a moment, Vinny felt relief. He wasn't part of it. He wasn't there. He was just a guy eating eggs in a diner when it happened. But then reality set in. He'd taken $7,500. He'd agreed to do a job, and he'd failed to show up. Carlo Gambino got the news at 9:30. He was in his office above a butcher shop in Brooklyn when the phone rang. "It's done," the voice said. "Clean." But there was a problem. What problem? Vinny wasn't there. The lookout never showed. Silence on the line. Then Gambino's voice, cold and flat. "Find him." By noon, every mobster in New York knew two things. Albert Anastasia was dead, and Vinny Morrow had taken money for a job he didn't do. That afternoon, Vinny returned to his apartment on Mott Street. Rosa was cooking dinner. The radio was on. The news was talking about Anastasia's murder, speculation about who ordered it, whether it was Genovese, whether it was Gambino, whether it meant war. Vinny sat at the kitchen table, sweating despite the October chill. The $7,500 was still in the paper bag, hidden in the bedroom closet. He'd thought about throwing it away, burning it, but he couldn't. His family needed that money. Maybe, he thought, maybe they'll let it go. The job got done. Anastasia's dead. What does it matter if I was there or not? But Vinny knew better. He'd been around the mob long enough to know how things worked. It wasn't about whether the job got done. It was about respect. It was about doing what you said you'd do. And Vinny had taken their money and walked away. Saturday, October 26, 1957, 2:15 p.m. 24 hours after Anastasia's murder. Vinny Morrow walked to his usual corner on Hester Street where he ran his bookmaking operation. Saturdays were busy, the horse races at Belmont, football games, guys coming by to place bets and collect winnings. Vinny needed everything to look normal. He needed his routine. But when he got to the corner, his regular customers weren't there. Instead, two men in dark overcoats stood waiting. Vinny recognized them immediately. Tommy Aboli and Patsy Panico, enforcers for the Genovese family. Vinny's legs almost gave out, but he kept walking, trying to look confused, trying to look like a guy who had no idea why two mob enforcers would be standing on his corner. "Vinny," Tommy Aboli said, not quite smiling. "We need to talk." Vinny's mouth was dry. "About what?" "You know about what. Get in the car." A black Cadillac was parked at the curb. Vinny thought about running. For half a second, he actually thought about turning around and running. But where would he go? They knew where he lived. They knew where his family was. He got in the car. They drove to a warehouse in Red Hook, one of those places where meat wholesalers kept. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Kept frozen sides of beef, where the smell of blood and sawdust never quite went away. Inside, Carlo Gambino was waiting. The new boss of the Anastasia family, though nobody was calling it that yet. Gambino wasn't a big man, maybe 5'7", thin, with wire-rimmed glasses that made him look like an accountant, but Vinny had heard the stories. Gambino was the one who'd set up Anastasia. Gambino was the one who'd planned the whole thing. And now Gambino was looking at Vinny with an expression that suggested mild curiosity, like Vinny was a cockroach Gambino was deciding whether to step on. "Vinny," Gambino said quietly, "you took $7,500 from us." Vinny started to speak, but Gambino held up a hand. "Let me finish. You took $7,500 to do a simple job. Stand on a corner, watch a door, signal if there's trouble. A child could do this job. My grandmother could do this job. But you couldn't do this job. You know why? Because you were scared." Vinny wanted to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. "I understand fear," Gambino continued. "Fear's reasonable. Fear keeps men alive. But do you know what's not reasonable? Taking money for a job you're too afraid to do. That's called theft, Vinny. You stole from us." "It wasn't like that," Vinny managed. I thought." "You thought what? That we wouldn't notice? That we wouldn't care?" Gambino took off his glasses, cleaned them with a handkerchief. "The hit went fine. Anastasia's dead. Nobody got caught. From a practical standpoint, you didn't matter. But Vinny, it's not about practical. It's about principle. If word gets out that a man can take our money and walk away, what do you think happens? Every small-time bookmaker, every two-bit hustler in New York thinks he can do the same. We can't have that." "I'll give the money back," Vinny said quickly. "All of it. I haven't spent any. It's still in my apartment. I'll get it right now." Gambino smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Oh, you'll give it back. But that doesn't solve our problem. Our problem is that you disrespected us. You made us look weak. And weakness, Vinny, weakness gets people killed." There was a long silence. Vinny could hear his own heartbeat, could feel sweat running down his back despite the warehouse chill. "Please," Vinny said, his voice cracking. "I got a wife, kids. I made a mistake. I'll do anything, anything to make this right." Gambino put his glasses back. "On. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go home. You're going to get that $7,500. You're going to bring it to Tommy by midnight tonight, and then you're going to leave New York. I don't care where you go. New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, I don't care. But you're done in this city. You don't book bets. You don't run numbers. You don't have anything to do with our business ever again." Vinny felt a surge of hope. "That's it? I can leave? That's it. But Vinny, if I ever see you in New York again, if I ever hear you're working any angle in this city, if you ever, even once, disrespect this arrangement, you won't get a second chance. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Then go." Vinny stood on shaking legs. Tommy Aboli and Patsy Panico drove him back to Mott Street. He went up to his apartment, got the paper bag with the money, brought it back down. He handed it to Tommy through the car window. "We'll be watching," Tommy said. "Make sure you're gone by Monday." The Cadillac drove away. Vinny stood on the sidewalk, breathing hard, unable to believe he was still alive. He'd gotten away with it. He'd failed the mob, and they were letting him walk. All he had to do was leave town. That night, Vinny told Rosa everything. She cried, not from fear, but from relief. They'd leave New York, start over somewhere. Maybe it was for the best. They started packing Sunday morning. Sunday, October 27th, 1957, 8:30 p.m. Vinny Morrow carried the last box down to the street. His brother-in-law had agreed to drive them to Philadelphia in the morning. Rosa's cousin had a place they could stay until Vinny found work. Legitimate work. No more bookmaking, no more mob connections. Just a regular life. Vinny was setting the box in the hallway when he heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy footsteps, multiple people. He turned. Tommy Aboli and Patsy Panico were coming up, but they weren't alone. Behind them were 3 more men, guys Vinny didn't recognize. Vinny's stomach dropped. "Wait," Vinny said, backing toward his apartment door. "Gambino said I could leave. He said if I gave back the money, I could go." Tommy stopped on the landing, his face expressionless. "Yeah, that's what he said. So what's this?" "This?" Tommy pulled out a gun, a snub-nosed .38. "This is a message, Vinny. Not for you. You're nobody. This is a message for everyone else." Vinny tried to run. He made it 2 steps before the first shot hit him in the back. He fell against the wall, slid down, leaving a smear of blood on the faded wallpaper. The second shot hit him in the chest, the third in the neck. Rosa heard the shots and screamed from inside the apartment, but she didn't open the door. The kids were crying. Neighbors cracked their doors, saw what was happening, and quickly shut them again. In neighborhoods like this, you didn't see things. You didn't hear things. Tommy Aboli stood over Vinny's body, checking for a pulse, even though there was no need. Patsy was already walking down the stairs. They left through the front door, got into the Cadillac waiting at the curb, and drove away at a normal speed. No rush, no panic, just another night in Little Italy. By Monday morning, everyone in the neighborhood knew what happened. Vinny Morrow had taken money from the mob and failed to show up for a job. The mob had told him he could leave town, and then they'd killed him anyway, right outside his own apartment. The story spread through New York's underworld like wildfire. Word reached every bookmaker, every loan shark, every small-time operator. The message was clear. Carlo Gambino had given Vinny mercy, had told him he could walk away. But mercy wasn't the point. The point was that you don't take money from the mob and fail to deliver. The point was that even if they say you can leave, even if they seem to forgive you, there's always a reckoning. Because it's not about you, it's about everyone else who might think they can do the same thing. 3 days after Vinny's murder, Carlo Gambino held a meeting at Umberto's Clam House in Little Italy. 20 capos from the 5 families attended. Vito Genovese was there. Tommy Lucchese, Joe Profacci, even Joe Bonanno. They were there to discuss the future, to establish the new power structure after Anastasia's death. But before they talked business, Gambino addressed the room. "You all heard about Vinnie Morrow. Some of you might think that was excessive." The man returned the money. He agreed to leave. Why kill him? Gambino looked around the table. Because it's not about the money. It's not about Vinnie Morrow. It's about respect. It's about making sure every person in the city understands that when you take an obligation from us, you fulfill it. No excuses. No second chances. Anastasia's dead because he forgot that. He thought being the most feared man in New York made him untouchable. He thought he could kill without consequences, act without permission, operate without oversight. He was wrong. And Vinnie Morrow, he thought he could take our money and walk away because the job got done anyway, because he was nobody important, because we wouldn't notice or wouldn't care. He was wrong too. Everyone at the table nodded. This was the language they understood. This was how order was maintained. Not through forgiveness, not through mercy, through fear, through the knowledge that failure had consequences, through the certainty that the mob always collected its debts. Over the next decade, the story of Vinnie Morrow became a cautionary tale. Older mobsters told it to younger ones. Fathers told it to sons entering the life. Bookmakers told it to other bookmakers. The specifics sometimes changed. Some versions said Vinnie spent the money. Some said he was planning to go to the cops. Some said he was shot inside his apartment instead of outside. But the core remained the same. A man took money from the mob and didn't do his job. The mob said he could leave. And then they killed him anyway, because in their world, mercy was a tool, not a value. It could be given or taken back depending on what the moment required, and what that moment required was a lesson. Vinnie Morrow's wife Rosa took their children and left New York the day after the funeral. She never spoke about what happened. The kids grew up knowing their father had been killed, but not why, not really. It was better that way. Less dangerous. In 1985, 28 years after Anastasia's murder, Carlo Gambino died of a heart attack in his home in Massapequa. He was 74 years old. He'd ruled his family for nearly 3 decades, longer than any other boss. He'd done it by being smarter than his enemies, more careful than his rivals, and more ruthless than anyone expected. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. From a man who looked like an accountant. At his funeral, someone mentioned Vinnie Morrow's name. An old-timer remembering the early days. A younger mobster asked who that was. The old-timer smiled. Nobody important. Just a guy who learned that when the mob gives you a job, you do the job, even if it scares you, even if it might get you killed. Because not doing it, that'll definitely get you killed. They moved on to other stories, other memories. But the lesson remained. In the world Carlo Gambino built, there were no small failures. There were no excuses. There was only the job, and whether you did it. Vinnie Morrow took Albert Anastasia's money and missed the job. The job got done anyway. Anastasia died in that barber chair, 5 bullets, 90 seconds, exactly as planned. But Vinnie still died outside his building, 3 bullets, because the mob doesn't pay for results. They pay for obedience, and they always, always collect.